Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
The San Diego Padres cut ties with their former broadcaster, and that's good news for cord cutters. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Today, the MLB took over the Padres broadcasts. As KPBS reporter Kitty Alvarado explains, it means a lot more people will be able to watch the games.
His first pitch is through the shift on the right side. A base.
There will be no more Padres games on Bally's regional sports network. On Tuesday night, Major League Baseball announced they would be taking over the broadcast starting today. The Padres took to social media to assure fans it was a good move. The deal would give them more options on how to watch the games.
So Major League Baseball has been preparing for this now for at least the last 6 months.
Miro Kopik, a professor of marketing at San Diego State University, says this was a long time coming, and MLB had a contractual agreement with the Diamond Sports Group that runs Bally's. Diamond is a subsidiary of Sinclair, and under the contract, if Diamond missed a payment, MLB would take over, something Sinclair didn't think would happen.
Over the last couple of years, they've lost 22 million subscribers. They've lost 800 million in revenues. That was not part of what they expected to get. So, and they loaded up on debt to pick up this regional sports network. And so Sinclair is in kind of trouble.
Serena Reed, a professor of media studies at Palomar College, says when it comes to broadcasting baseball, this could be the wave of the future, especially when it comes to audience reach. The team says it was reaching 1.1 million homes before and now will reach 2.1 million, an increase of almost 200%.
It's a complete 360 kind of event that almost never happens, especially in television. But like I tell my students, this is the new golden age of television. You got so many choices out there to watch so many different things.
And that's what Padres fans really want, to watch the team they love play the game they live for, baseball.
If they keep it consistent, I think that will be a plus for the Padres and, for obviously the fans and consumers. And it will give them an opportunity to see the games, especially games that I guess they're lifting any blackout rules.
MLB says fans would get to stream for free through June 4th.
That could be a big plus. And after this weekend of kind of free TV on MLB.com or Padres.com, yes, the fans are going to have to pay for their favorite team.
It's all about the bottom line, says Mike Tortolot, one of the hosts of My Sons of Montezuma podcast.
That's their ultimate goal, is to make money. And unfortunately, it's not always the fans who benefit from it.
But he had a warning for the MLB network. They better get it right or they will hear about it from the diehard Padres fans.
Don't touch it. Just leave our guys in the booth. Because those two guys are San Diego, through and through.
Kitty Alvarado, KPBS News.
Bus drivers in San Diego are entering their third week of a strike, the longest transit strike in San Diego's recent history. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says the labor dispute is raising questions about the privatization of public transit.
Bus drivers are continuing to walk the picket line. They're asking for better pay to deal with the soaring cost of living in San Diego, and they want better access to clean and safe bathrooms during their shifts. Erica Lopez has been a bus driver for 14 years. She says the bathroom situation is often unsanitary, and it's especially bad for women.
And then, let's say 5, 4, 6 in the morning, if we do go to a porta party, I've had the times where people from the street try to open the door.
The buses Lopez drives may have the MTS logo on them, but she and her colleagues don't work for MTS. They work for Transdev, a private multinational company that MTS contracts with to operate more than half of its bus routes. MTS says this arrangement saves taxpayers money, that Transdev has the benefit of a large economy of scale, translating to lower costs for insurance, labor, and equipment. Colin Parent of the nonprofit Circulate San Diego says the trend toward privatizing public transit took off in the last few decades, but there wasn't much discussion at the time about what MTS was giving up: a direct relationship with transit workers and riders.
And instead of the riders being able to tell MTS, the public agency, hey, we want you to take care of your workers so that we get the buses running again and so we can get to work on time, instead, MTS can kind of point to this third-party intermediary company and say, well, it's not our fault, it's this other company. And that's not good. That's certainly not good for the workers, but it's also really not good for the riders either.
Gary Goss lives in Hillcrest and takes the bus to his job in Kensington and to school downtown. Most of the bus routes that are out of service are in the South Bay and East County, but there are routes in central San Diego that are also not running. Goss says MTS has done a terrible job communicating that info to riders.
I still see a lot of people waiting there, and they don't know when the next bus is coming, and I just want to go out every single bus stop and tell them hey, there's not another bus coming for maybe another hour.
Goss doesn't have strong opinions about whether privatizing public transit is inherently bad, but at the moment, it doesn't seem to be working.
If MTS has a good reason to contract out these specific services to a private company, then I think they should be able to do that if they can make the case. But it seems like they haven't been willing to make that case at all, and they just sort of say, this is how it is. It lowers costs somehow, but are riders really seeing that lower costs? Because, riders are having to pay for Ubers right now.
MTS board chairman Stephen Whitburn sent KPBS a statement saying, I am deeply concerned about Transdev's failure to provide transit service to many of our MTS customers. If the transit service is not restored this week, I will call an emergency meeting of the board of directors to explore our options. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
It's a make it or break it day for the nation to avoid a catastrophic default on its debts. Any moment now, the House of Representatives is set to vote on a compromise bill to suspend the debt limit through January 1st, 2025, among other provisions. GOP and Democratic leaders are confident the bill will pass, but there's discord among both parties. Some conservatives say the spending cuts are not enough, while some progressives say the White House made too many concessions on federal safety net programs and climate. And if the debt deal passes, those with student loan debt will resume payments soon. Payments were paused during the pandemic, and the pause was extended 8 times. But a provision in the debt ceiling agreement says that it will end in late August. There are concerns the process may not go smoothly, as millions of borrowers could have a different servicer than when they last made payments. Experts recommend borrowers reach out to their servicer to make sure their payments gets to the right place and on time. The billionaire owners of Purdue Pharma must pay $6 billion for their role in the nation's opioid crisis. Laura Aguirre has more on what the appeals court ruling means and the questions that remain.
Purdue Pharma first introduced the opioid drug OxyContin in the 1990s, promoting it as non-addictive.
The rate of addiction amongst pain patients who are treated by doctors is much less than 1%.
Later studies would show national opioid addiction rates as high as 12%. Since 1999, more than 500,000 people have died from an opioid overdose in the U.S., according to the CDC. Lawsuits against Purdue Pharma and its owners, the Sackler family, started stacking up into the tens of trillions of dollars. To avoid years of continued legal battles and potentially dwindling settlements, a deal was made.
This $6 billion deal will fund treatment and prevention. It gets the Sacklers out of the opioid business. It shuts down Purdue Pharma.
$6 billion goes to several states, Washington, D.C., and other claimants over 18 years. Of that, at least $750 million goes directly to victims and families who've lost loved ones.
Nothing is ideal in this sort of situation, but I think it is the best that we could have gotten.
The ruling allows the Sacklers and Purdue Pharma to settle their bankruptcy, the company calling it the only way to direct billions toward combating the opioid epidemic. The Sacklers will also be immune from current and future lawsuits. In a statement, the family says it's pleased with the court's decision. I'm Laura Aguirre for KPBS News.
Dozens of ghost guns are off our streets thanks to a months-long multi-agency crime reduction project. San Diego City leaders, including Mayor Todd Gloria and Police Chief David Nislight, made the announcement today. Over 3 months, law enforcement agencies seized 165 firearms, 82 of which were ghost guns. 30 arrests were made. The project focused on known problem areas around the county. Although law enforcement agencies would not disclose what those areas are, they say it was based on intelligence gathered through undercover operations.
Our #1 priority is keeping our communities safe. And criminals with ghost guns are a serious threat to that safety. Every illegal gun that is removed from criminal hands makes us safer.
The district attorney's office says 66 pounds of meth, 1.4 kilos of fentanyl, and 2 kilograms of cocaine were also seized during the operation. Police departments across the country are beginning to use artificial intelligence to help officers do their job. Vanessa Yurkovich talked with law enforcement officials about the impact it's having.
Officer Dan Janita is on patrol. He has all his tools for the day, including his body-worn camera, which automatically captures videos of his encounters with civilians.
Safety first. Absolutely.
20 videos a day, over 100 hours a week. His final invisible piece of equipment, artificial intelligence, a program called Trulio, which analyzes what he records.
Did you have fears about what it meant to have artificial intelligence tracking your day-to-day?
I did have apprehensions. It is AI. Technology can sometimes have drawbacks. It's not perfect.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I've seen things play out enough where technology has helped us.
And that is what Trulio's co-founder and CEO, Anthony Tassoni, is aiming for.
We started Trulio after George Floyd was murdered in May of 2020. How do we prevent this from happening again?
What percentage of body camera footage gets reviewed now?
A fraction of 1%.
And Trulio could look at what percentage of body cam video?
100%.
The AI was trained by humans to detect 5 million key terms.
I got him in the yard.
Like profanity, noncompliance, as well as professional language or explanations. The goal is detecting early problematic police behavior before it turns deadly.
I get an email alert every day at 6 o'clock.
Dan Janita's chief, Ken Truver of Castle Shannon PD in Pennsylvania, has been using Trulio for a year. He's also an advisor.
These are the keywords that you put in.
They are. So stop resisting, custody, arrest, anything to do with the pursuit. I'm looking for high-risk things.
Trulio transcribes entire encounters from body cameras, but pinpoints the exact moments that need review.
Stop resisting. Just relax. Just relax. Just relax, actually.
Not a whole lot of resistance, but it was giving me exactly what I was looking for.
And so for you, this is a good interaction with one of your officers and a civilian?
It is.
The Alameda Police Department in California has been using Trulio for a little over a year. It's seen a 36% drop in use of force by officers, Tassoni says. The AI pointed out risky interactions with civilians, giving officers the chance to review and change their behaviors.
What would Trulio's involvement have been in a situation like Tyre Nichols?
I feel very strongly that Trulio not only would have recognized, obviously, the event of the murder of Tyre Nichols, but the hundreds of events that took place prior to that. I believe Trulio would have prevented the death of Tyre because it would have detected the deterioration in the officer's behavior years prior.
There are 18,000 police departments in the U.S. Just 20 are using Trulio, with 20 more signing on this year, including Aurora PD in Colorado.
It will be an early warning system that will help save careers and ultimately maybe even save lives.
In 2019, 3 Aurora police officers were charged with the death of Elijah McClain, using excessive force during his arrest.
If we see just a little change in the officer's performance, we'll be able to actually intervene early on. Get them help, get them counseling, get them training. Do whatever it takes to get back on the right track.
Back in Castle Shannon, Chief Truver says the technology has only proven what he already suspected about his officers.
What has this changed? Anything?
No, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I want to catch something before it happens. I don't want to be reactionary. We want to be looking ahead to make sure that we stay ahead of the game, ahead of any issues, and I don't think that's a bad thing.
Experts say it's the most important virus that you've never heard about. According to the CDC, a little-known respiratory virus has spiked this spring and led to the hospitalizations among many of the most vulnerable individuals. Here's Mandy Gaither with more.
It's called human metapneumovirus, or HMPV, a little-known virus that's wreaked havoc on the U.S. this spring, filling some hospitals with young children and seniors, according to the CDC.
The symptoms are identical almost to influenza and respiratory syncytial virus.
Those symptoms include a hacking cough, runny nose, fever, and shortness of breath. At its peak in mid-March, nearly 11% of tested specimens were positive for HMPV.
What is most concerning is the fact that it has increased approximately 36% in the last year.
The virus has been around for a while. Health experts believe pandemic precautions like masking kept it at bay.
Now that we've let down our defenses, now that we are not as cautious, all these viruses, think of it this way, where they're just waiting to pounce, and indeed they are pouncing.
Most people who caught HMPV probably didn't even know they had it. Sick people aren't usually tested for it outside of a hospital or ER. Unlike COVID-19 and the flu, there's no vaccine for HMPV or antiviral drugs to treat it. Instead, doctors care for seriously sick patients by tending to their symptoms.
The best treatment is precaution and prevention.
Health experts say that's why it's important to be aware of this virus, especially if those most vulnerable to it get sick.
Monitor them. If they get sicker, for example, if they become short of breath, if their fever spikes up above 100 and 103 or 104, they need to go see a physician.
For Health Minute, I'm Mandy Gaither.
North America's largest marine protected reserve off the coast of Mexico is showing what can be done to protect biodiversity without hurting the fishing industry. KPBS environment reporter Eric Anderson has the results of a new study.
The marine reserve is located south of Baja California.
This marine protected area encompasses 4 volcanic islands that are 700 kilometers offshore.
La Villa Gaguedo National Park covers more than 147,000 square kilometers, making it the 13th largest marine protected area in the world. A new study provides evidence that the fishing industry did not suffer smaller catches and higher expenses because of the creation of the reserve in 2017.
The fisheries is probably the sector that received the most benefits when these areas start generating more fish, more animals, and they start moving outside these areas.
The Science Advances study assessed the area before and after the creation of the reserve. The underwater park is home to more than 300 fish species. 36 species are only found there.
We have seen fish biomass in the reefs or Reviejero going up.
Technology helped make the assessment possible. Researchers tracked more than 2,000 Mexican fishing vessels and integrated satellite monitoring to help track a region that is pretty remote. The team also trained computers to send alerts if monitoring detected suspicious activity.
We can detect vessels from far away, actually from my desk. I can monitor real-time the position of the vessels. And we can say with very, very high precision what's their current behavior and status. I can model and know if they're trying to fish or not.
Researchers hope their findings make it easier to protect the biodiversity of protected areas by showing fishing interests that their livelihood will not be hurt. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
A study of past and projected California snowfall is bad news for skiers and for the state's snowpack. KPBS SciTech reporter Thomas Fudge says the state's snow line is expected to increase more than 1,500 feet by the end of the century.
The study was led by scientists at San Diego's Scripps Institution of Oceanography. It is based on 70 years of records that show progressively less snow accumulation and rising snow lines in California. The snow line is the mountain elevation where you get snow above it and rain below. Climate scientist Ben Hatchett worked with Scripps on the study. He talks about changes in California's peak snowpack.
We are starting to see that timing of peak snowpack shift earlier, as we are also seeing less total accumulated snowpack. And so the way to interpret that is our snow season window is getting a little bit smaller. It's melting earlier, and there's less of it to melt.
If trends in global warming continue, of course, the future will bring even smaller snowpacks and higher snow lines. Statewide, the estimated rise in the snow line will be 1,600 feet by the end of this century.
And so if you just take that number at face value, that means very different things depending where you are in the state. If you're in the northern part, where the mountains are quite a bit lower, that rise might mean we very rarely see snow in some of the northern Sierra Nevada and especially in the southern Cascades.
Snow, Hatchett says, is California's savings account when it comes to water. The bigger the snowpack and the longer it takes to melt, the more slow, manageable runoff we get and are able to capture for our water supply. As the Earth's temperature rises, more precipitation falls as rain, meaning fewer water savings and more flooding for California. As for recreation, some low-elevation ski resorts may no longer be getting snowfall.
At a lot of the ski areas, especially in the Tahoe Basin and along the western side of the Sierra Nevada, are very low.
Ski resorts between 6,000 and 9,000 feet of elevation could lose 70% of their snow accumulations by 2,200. Julian in San Diego County is around 4,200 feet. Another factor affecting California snowfall is the trend toward atmospheric rivers, those warm storm systems that bring California a lot of its precipitation. As these storms increase and get warmer, that also means more rain and less snow. Thomas Fudge, KPBS News.
Lots of clouds around over the course of the last couple of days. That's really held those temperatures down. We'll continue to follow the clouds over the course of the next couple of afternoons, though there will be a bit of a decreasing trend in some of the coverage of the cloudiness over the inland valleys, especially toward the mountainous terrain. We'll also experience less interior wind and a slight warming trend away from the coast. So speaking of the wind, through Thursday morning, there's a wind advisory out here. This is going to be out east of Borrego Springs, Julian, and Pine Valley. All right, temperature-wise for tonight, we're dropping down to 59. Still some low cloudiness, and we had some areas of drizzle earlier on this morning. Just an extensive area of clouds. We'll be featuring temperatures down into the mid-50s here, too, toward Oceanside. Chula Vista drops down to 58, Ramona 52, and this is where the skies will have a tendency to see some breaks in the clouds. Borrego Springs 58, Mount Laguna dropping down to 44. But even with Futurecast, you can see the layer of cloudiness that just kind of hugs the coast and the interior valleys throughout the overnight and going through the morning, a decreasing trend in some of the cloud coverage as we venture our way toward the afternoon. But the immediate coast, lots of clouds throughout the majority of the day. So again, temperatures running down below historical averages. San Diego 65, the same toward Chula Vista. Ramona 67, and then out east, we bump into the warmth around Borrego Springs. Here, we're going to see those temperatures climb even more so down the road. Very subtle warming at the coast, but perhaps not quite as many areas of low clouds for the afternoon Friday into Saturday. As we venture our way down the road, could see, again, some more low cloudiness, perhaps even some wet weather as we work our way into early next week. Interior valleys, probably more noticeable of a warming trend here. 60s turning to mid-70s as we go from Thursday into Saturday. Mountainous terrain, less wind, subtle bump up in the mercury from the 50s into the 60s as we go into the weekend. Perhaps a thunderstorm early next week. And then notice the heat building over the deserts. 91 Thursday, up to 98 by Sunday. For KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Justin Pavic.
The San Diego County Fair opens next week, and this year's theme is Get Out There. It encourages San Diegans to explore the great outdoors and the natural wonders our county has to offer. Here's KPBS North County reporter Alexander Wynn with a sneak peek.
Back in the days of my childhood,
This year's theme is Get Out There, and we're just really excited because it's all about exploring not only the fair, but really the regional parks and everything that San Diego County has to offer in outdoor activity.
The County of San Diego Department of Parks and Recreation Park Rangers partnered with California State Parks to put together a really awesome series of educational workshops. Those do include live reptile presentations.
Our vendors that get into getting out there. So this year we feature a lot of s'mores or camp-inspired foods and things like that.
Wicked Kitchen is a new concept that we're rolling out. It's an all plant-based concept where you would never know the difference between the bao bun with the meatball in it, and you would never know it wasn't a meatball. It'll offer something different during the fair, something healthy.
So we're excited to bring back the award-winning Asian and Pacific Islander Festival Day at the San Diego County Fair. We're going to be having a full day of multicultural entertainment. You could bring the family and friends. There's going to be amazing family activities that you can do, from origami making to fan making.
There's no light in the window that shines on the road where I live. Oh, thank y'all so much.
Looks like a lot of fun. Well, here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. As the number of teens using opioids goes up, California debates whether they should have access to drug treatment without parental consent. That is going to be on NPR's Morning Edition. And along with your weekend preview, KPBS Midday Edition is bidding a fond farewell to longtime host Maureen Cavanaugh, and we all wish her well. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Good night.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following: and by viewers like you. Thank you.